Our first speaker is Otavio Santana. Otavio is a member of expert groups and also expert leader in several GSRs and JCP executive committee, and he working on several Apache and Eclipse Foundation projects like Microprofile, Jakarta, EE, and so on. Hello, Otavio.
Hello everybody. How are you?
People are smiling and showing thumbs up. And are you from Portugal, right?
Yes, right now I'm in Portugal, but I'm from Brazil. So I'm living here. It's really colder than Brazil, where we usually don't have winter like this. And yes, when we live in 42, 35 Celsius, 5 Celsius is really, really cold. So thank you for this gift that I'm still using like every day.
I'm so glad this was useful for you. So I'm going to speak about Java in the cloud, right?
Yes, exactly. So my main goal here is to talk about the cloud, the mistake that we did, right? So usually we talk about success case, but I guess we are really tired to just see the success. So what did I do wrong when I started application with Java? So that's what I will cover today.
Okay, I guess you can just start. I will not take your time anymore, and please go ahead.
Okay. So let's go ahead. So thank you, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Unfortunately, not physically. My name is Otavio Santana, and today I will talk about bring Java to the cloud, where I am, where am I going, and how do I get there. I did not did this presentation alone. I did with Karina Varela. Unfortunately, she's not here. The time zone, is a messy. Who am I? My name is Otavio Santana. I'm the senior engineer at Super Innovation. I enjoy Java a lot. That's why I become Java champion, JCP executive member, expert group leader, Apache committer, Eclipse committer. I'm a member of several open source groups such as CNCF, Linux Foundation, Finance, Eclipse product leader, committer, and also when I do have free time, I enjoy to write in books and articles, mostly about technology. With me, Karina Varela. She is Principal Technical Marketing Manager at Red Hat Brazil. She has over 10 years of experience. She received the Internal Organization Award, that's Red Hat Champion. She drives several communities, key communities, so Java instructor. And yes, she writes books and blogs on her free time. But anyway, today is not to talk about us. Today is to talk about the fascinating world of cloud native, because everybody right now is talking about that, right? Because it's a success. Everybody loves to work with cloud native, and there's no mistake. That's that moment, this pure moment, because every time that I'm talking about cloud native, it's like a magic happen. But unfortunately, it's not true. And my first question to you is cloud native a technical term, is a philosophical term, or just a fantasy? Right? Or maybe just buzzword that every company is using to get more clients. I received one definition by Emmanuel Bernard, who said that cloud native is a new thing to sell new stuff to clients. But let's move on. When I talked about what is cloud native, it is a technical definition or a philosophical or sales pitch. The first point is there is no definition. It's an amazing book, Cloud Native Development Patterns and Best Practice, that they insist it is an infrastructure definition where you are able to have a word that is doors, deploy, update, replace, and scale. DURS. The Cloud Transformation, to me, is my favorite book around cloud native, where to the authors, it is a methodology. So it's beyond the technology. In the past, we had waterfall. Right now, we are living in agile methodology, and they are talking about the next move after the agile methodology, where everybody is around clouds. So it involves architecture solution, methodology solution, Scrum Master. So the whole team will work around cloud native. Cloud, so it will cloud native, and so on. So there is CNCF, who has your own definition, where it's so abstract, because the CNCF talked about empower people, scalability. So they talk about several things that everybody wants to have, but there is no explanation how to get there. Okay, so that's why I started with, okay, is cloud native really a technical discussion, or something more a philosophical one? And usually when you talk about the ERM fallout, there is an experiment around it, that is the Ash conformity experiment, where basically we automatically try to go closer to everybody, even when you know it's wrong. For example, as you can see here, basically there is a teacher who needs to compare one line to another, where she has one size, and the question is, okay, given this X size, each one has the same size, A, B, or C. As you can see here, the first three ones will answer the wrong one. Who those are actors, and this person here, the real person, you start to guess yourself, okay, it's supposed to be B, right? But why everybody's doing C? And basically, he will follow the trends. And it is not exclusive to the regular people, but also to us. And we have a different name, that is the hype effect, where right now we must build our architecture around these names, with Kubernetes, issues, microservice, sidecar, hypothesis-driven design, event-driven design, observability, and so on. And because we have 1,000 options that we're supposed to work faster, it happened the opposite, right? Basically, the complexity is killing of developers, mostly because right now we have too many options. That's hard to choose just one. Besides, sometimes to create a simple application, we want to start with microservice instead of monolith. Or we want to use microservice with Kafka, with Cache, with MongoDB, or any NoSQL database running in cloud native, just to running a hello world, right? So because we try to follow the hype trends, and our favorite technical influencer, the ship going bad, right? There is an iceberg outside there that will crash, and your tech influencer will be roles that say, okay, sorry, we don't have enough slot to you, so my bad, but you're gonna die. And today here is only to talk about the 5 myths around, okay, how can I get there? And the first point is, oh, I know there is several thousand meetings and presentation about Kubernetes, Java, Cloud Native. And today I will cover only the failure case or the top mistake that I have seen and I already did. And to say, okay, that's normal to make mistakes. And that's funny because when it starts several discussion about Kubernetes, there is no discussion about backup anymore. So is that backup necessary? Or because Kubernetes is so complex, it's hard to do backup in our system? There is kind of discussion that I will cover today. And to start, let's talk about the mistake number one, at least the top one. Okay, this technology set is enough because every application should have the same application, the same tool, the same everything. These mistakes always happen with a huge company, a huge enterprise company where they try to set a unique application, a unique stack to solve any kind of problem, because it's easier to have a control around that. Unfortunately, it's not true, right? So those are my favorite book if you want to start with architecture. And basically this book talks about there are no right or wrong answers in architecture, only trade-off. Because the context matters to us a lot. So please pay attention on that, because I know if you're from a huge company, you try to use one technology to the whole company, but unfortunately, it's not the best way. For sure, we need to control the technology, otherwise it become a mix. I saw a product that has more technology than people or has more microservices than employees. It's bad. However, try to control to everybody work with Java 5 is also a mistake as well. So briefly, there is no right and wrong answer. So there is no always use microservice. It depends on the context. Monolith is good usually to start. There's no right or wrong answer about choreography, orchestration, containers, VM, native, serverless, JVM, Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, Java, Go, microservice, and Jakarta. It always has the context around, and please pay attention on that. The second mistake that I saw, let's start coding ASAP. Don't worry about the use case. I must code as soon as possible. Who cares about the details, right? Unfortunately, that's the issue that I saw, especially in startup. And as my recommendation, sign a golden circle, where it starts with the why. First, understand why you're doing that. And then you go to how. But first, spend 1,000 times just understand exactly what's going on with that application, with the business perspective, and stay closer to the people. The mistake number 3, okay, is automation is just a distraction. Who cares, right? I don't have time to improve myself. I need to follow the sprint. As a recommendation, if your monolith application is not using CI/CD, please don't go to monolith. It will be a huge mistake, because instead of you have a huge amount of unsecure code, you're gonna have multiple code of multiple places of insecure code. CI/CD, so continuous integration aligned with continuous delivery, where You have a build, test, security checks. For example, we have Heroku. We have a stable release, deploy state, and finally the deploy production. Please pay attention on that. Automation makes sense to us. And when you talk about automation, I'm not only talk about developers, but also to infrastructure people. So if you are SRE, platform engineer, it doesn't matter who you are, please pay attention at the infrastructure as a code, where we have my codes as infrastructure. So it's a good buy to it works only on my machine. It optimizes for change, reusability, consistency, transparency, and mostly observability. Why? Imagine right now that I would like to upgrade my Java application to Java 18. I'm able to open APR with this version and test in my continuous integration. If it makes sense, I'm able to merge and upgrade my infrastructure to move forward. If some things that I only saw on production, I'm able to do the git revert to return to the original state, okay? Infrastructure as a code is a nice way to stay slow about technology. I know if you are from a huge company, you probably are using Java 8 or Java 11. But infrastructure as a code is a nice way to move faster and with a stability that you want to. So automate and chill. The 4 mistakes. Let's use microservice. Let's don't care about anything else, right? Yes. If you say scalability in a technical discussion, that's enough. You don't need to explain anything else. Who cares, right? Today is about architecture. Scalability is the main word that everybody wants. And that's really, really funny, especially because when I saw several architecture that's supposed to be scalable with microservice, they need to return to monolith to become scalable. And for sure, it's not true. There are several articles, several books, especially from Sam Neiman, who wrote the most famous 2 books around microservice. He also wrote an article about should I use microservice, and he explains, okay, you need to understand first the context space, your skill, technology landscape, and then apply if microservices are right for you. And usually he recommends to start with monolith, especially if you are a startup, to put your code on production as soon as possible, okay? Those books also has the same recommendation. There is this free book here from Edson Yanaga. And he explained, okay, just because Netflix and Amazon are using that, it doesn't mean that you are Google and Amazon or Netflix or Amazon. Please don't follow the herd. And every time that we talk about optimization, remember, the premature optimization is root of all evil. Every time that everybody try to do a premature optimization, that might come with thousands of mistakes. So it will be more harm than good for you. Yes. Also, we talk about microservice. Why not? Let's use Kubernetes to everything. So just because the big techs are using, you should use. So because it must be special, right? Unfortunately, believe it or not, Kubernetes also has the trade-offs. There is 1,000 of Kubernetes failure stories. I'm not saying that Kubernetes is fail at all. but it has trade-offs. And there is this amazing book, 97 Things Every Cloud Engineer Should Know. And there is one chapter about, it's okay if you're not running Kubernetes. There is a huge complexity around Kubernetes, and it's okay if you don't want to. And if you don't believe me, please believe in Yoda. So he has wise words about Istio, because complicated enough, Kubernetes is not. And Kubernetes by Yoda, because listen, you did not when your mother did, not just to do something just because everyone else was. So please listen to you, Yoda, if you don't trust me. Let's move on to mistake number 6. Self-document your code. Who cares around that, right? So if my code is clear enough, everything will be okay. Less time to do the documentation is more time to write a code, right? Unfortunately, it's not true. There is a discussion about the clean code that explains exactly around that. But there is a context. Don't try to use a paragraph outside the context to explain that you don't want to write a good documentation. Okay? Why should we care about documentation? Yes, you should always try to explain yourself in the code, but the code is important, especially when it makes sense. The idea here is to use an explanation of intent and why, and not how, because your code should be understandable. When I said that you should write a good documentation, it's not to write a huge code where you have a huge amount of if and else, and then put a documentation like, okay, trust me, it should work. Please don't remove anything else. But yes, you should write a good code with the why in the documentation and some details. So a good documentation is not enemy of DDD. It's not enemy of DSL. It's not enemy of clean code. So you are able to combine a good documentation with a good code. Indeed, soft documentation is so important that several open source products start to have a guide. For example, here, Druze has a documentation about documentation. Red Hat has a documentation to write a documentation. Indeed, right now, we are facing a new job in our area. That's a technical writer. So it's important to have a good README, especially to open source products, developer guides, contributor guides, user guide, API, and so on. So write a good documentation. And when I talk about software, it's okay if you, indeed, you must write architecture documentation. It's something that everybody needs to understand and see what's going on with the architecture. So write a C4 model. It's okay to you. Write a tech radar where you are able to mapping the whole technology that your organization is using, right? So I will test a new technology. So tech radar or open APR to document that, explain why we are using new technology. Explain your experiment. Why I usually recommend you have your own tech radar to map what you're using and where you want to go. Okay, documentation is efficient tools to avoid decrease of quality inside onboarding process, something like that. The C4 model is basically you have an overview of your architecture in your organization as well, how the components work together. It is really, really important to us to understand that. And the last run is architecture decision record. The main goal here is to avoid that you did the same mistake twice, because every decision to go or not go, that's one reason. You are able to open a architecture decision record and reprove that, or approve that, or learn from that mistake. Okay, so C4 model to see the whole organization in technological perspective. Tech radar about the tools. Be worried about the granularity, because documentation has a trade-off. If you do a non-documentation, you need to go blindly, or you need to have 1,000 meetings, or it's a cohorts coming. But if you write too much documentation, it's an over documentation. You spend more time write documentation than work. So try to find the fair size of documentation to your organization. Mistake number 7, security is a part of the plan. As we grow and get bigger, we are safe. So also I'm a small company, nobody will handle to me. Yes, it's a really mistake, right? There is several research about, can a data breach really bankrupt your business? And the answer is yes. It doesn't matter the size of your company. So if you're a huge one, like Target, they need to pay like $300 million to remediation, because every security issues is not only to security perspective, but business perspective, because it will be really hard to trust that company again. And there is research for IBM who said that every small mistake costs around $7 million when they find out. Again, it doesn't matter the size of your company. It will happen eventually. And there is another research that explains that more than half of the business has been affected around security, has been closed around because of security. So please pay attention in security, because it matters to us. To put security in a nutshell, there is one word, CIA, confidentiality, is around, I need to send the right information to the right person. Integrity, I need to send this same information, if without change, to the people. Availability, when the person is able to see, they must to see. Okay, see, the right person should read the right information. Integrity, if without change. And availability, when they want to see, they need to see. And remember, usually around security, the small mistakes, or the sequence of small mistakes, has as consequence a big impact, or a big consequence. So usually the small mistakes in IT area is around code vulnerability, where 3 out of 4 applications had any kind of issues in data breach because of that. I'm talking about really small steps like SQL injection, HTML injection, something like that. And operation vulnerability. Yes, I'm talking about the default user and password in the database, for example. And usually when I talk about security, I have my favorite history, that is the Titanic, where a lot of people thought that the ship faced the iceberg and the mistake started from there. But indeed, that's not true. In reality, the mistake happened mainly because a small key. Before the ship starts your journey, there was a swift between captains. The previous captain forgot to give the key to the new captain. Because of that, the new captain could not open the one door. Once he was not able to open this door, he's not able to give a binocular to the watch. Once this person was not able to see distance, he's not able to see the iceberg. And because he's not able to see the iceberg, it happened. So a small mistake, a small key has a consequence to crash in the iceberg. Remember that when you talk about security, okay? The mistake number 8 is scalability. So it's become a buzzword around us. Let's use, it doesn't matter why, and it doesn't matter why, how, because it has more scalability. Unfortunately, it's not true. Every single decision has a trade-off. When you talk about database, that is the CAP theorem. So SQL, SQL, NoSQL, we need to think about the 3 words: consistency, availability, and fault tolerance. It's impossible to have 3 of them. So every time that I took a decision, you have advantage or no advantage. And remember, complexity is more than a sales pitch words. There is a huge complexity behind. So scalability to what? To read, to write, a vertical one, a horizontal one. How about the CAP theorem and the trade-off? So understand exactly what's going on and then apply that. We are almost finished. So mistake number 9. Who cares about that, right? It's a useless time. Indeed, no, it's not true. So software testing save money. When talk about testing, I also talk about security testing. So SAS, security analysis tests. Every time that you spend more time in tests, you improve the quality of your product. Therefore, it will raise the customer satisfaction. And yes, it's a kind of way to do a documentation of your software. And the last mistake that we will talk today is planning. We are developers. We should not care about business, right? Who cares about business? The idea is to try to conquer the world with my favorite technology. Indeed, it's not true. Almost half of our software is useless to our users. So please stay closer to our users because it matters to them, it matters to us, it matters to the business, it matters to our career. My recommendation is be pragmatic, incremental, like a Pokemon. So there is this pragmatic programmer. So, okay, I need to start that. I need to understand why, how, and then move step by step to test, and move forward. And especially if you are moving between methodology where we are in the culture of product and moving to product culture or vice versa, please pay attention because those are different. When you talk about product, you should have a roadmap, test, incremental way. The result is the customer love satisfaction. It's not to release by the end, by the mean, okay? So the roadmap matters to us when you talk about product. And it is a lot. And finally, when you talk about, okay, I need to move my application to the cloud. There are several thousand of framework adoption to move your application. But to us, it's like a flight plan, right? Every time that I've applied a plane takeoff, they should have a flight plan where they want to go, the distance, the fuel, the budget, the temperature, the weather. And that is us when we want to move our application to the cloud, right? We have where we are and where we should go. Basically, to us, it resumes in 5 steps. The level O, or the level 0, is none. It is okay, where you don't have anything in your application in cloud. Basically, you are running locally, or you have your on-premise application. You don't have no cloud adoption at all. But it is okay. You do everything manually. The next step is an initial one, where you start to learn about cloud native perspective. You finally understand that cloud native is more a philosophical word than a technical thing. You probably need to have your own definition of cloud native. You understand that cloud is not about somebody else's problem, or it's not about somebody else's computer, but somebody else's problem. Where if you think about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, basically you pay to somebody else to handle your problem. So, for example, if you want to use infrastructure as a service, basically we are delegating hardware to somebody else. You don't want to handle with hardware anymore. PaaS, we are delegating the hardware plus infrastructure. Basically, you need to handle what you want to go on the software perspective. In the latest one, SaaS, it is to a next step. So a small application, then a second one, a third one, then your database, and then move forward. The level number 2 is automation, because it's really, really important to us. So you moved manually everything. There's time to move your application automatically and make everything automatically to us. Deployment of software infrastructure become automated and therefore repeatable. So you need to use CI/CD, mainly GitOps, Git operation, and let's make everything work to you. The level 3, observable and modifiable. So your application is now 100% in the cloud. You are only using cloud. Everything new is in the cloud. You have automation in the cloud. When started a product, it has CI/CD. Everything is okay. You have observability in your code, in your infrastructure, using GitOps in both situations. And the whole lifecycle has automation and flow, and it's all a part of that. And the last one is hybrid cloud, where your business perspective does not belong to only one vendor, but to hybrid cloud, multi-cloud vendors. Indeed, to us, it doesn't matter anymore, because to us, it's a simple detail. We are able to choose between cloud providers like magically, if without impact your application. So the automation of the latest level is when you are able to use hybrid cloud or multi-cloud more fluent. So to you, cloud is a strategic resource where you're able to use as much you want. That is it. Hopefully, I hope that you enjoyed, that was useful to you. That is my Twitter handle at Otavio Java, Karina Varela, Key Varela 4, instead of A is 4. And Zoop Innovation, the company that I'm working for, please follow us on Twitter, and thank you.
Thank you very much. You had so many funny gifs in your
I love it.
presentation. So, yes.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Let's put my hat to celebrate.
Great. And do you have any questions? Yes. Could you go here, please, so Otavio can see you?
Hi, Otavio. Thank you for your talk.
Hello, hello. Thank you.
I have
welcome.
a question, like a tricky question maybe. Imagine a company that doesn't write tests, doesn't write comments, doesn't give a damn about security. So it's full of holes, it's broken as possible. But that was their intentional trade-off. Because there was a moment, for example, they needed money here and now, they wanted to release really fast. And they did it for purpose. Is it a legitimate position from your perspective?
Yes, it's happened a lot of time. It's not a trick question. It's like a retort to me. But when they grew up, I worked in the company as a consulting service. So there is a huge Brazilian bank that started from scratch, where they bought several softwares without tests to grow up. And then when they had 1,000 clients, okay, they thought, okay, we grew up enough. There's time to create more walls to protect our sites. So yes, sometimes the go horse way is not a crime. Sometimes it's a way to move fast, to test your application in the production, to move your application to test if it makes sense. And when it does, it's time to build the walls of protection of securities. But it is dangerous, especially about security, especially about quality. As a mentor, I saw several startups who tried to do this approach and fail because of that, because it has a huge data breach. I don't know if you remember, 3 years ago, we had a Redis data breach, and basically they lost the whole information, and they don't have money to pay off to that information, and they bankrupt. It's normal. It happened. I don't recommend that, but I saw several times, and then when they grow up, they build the walls. But it's dangerous, and sometimes I saw it's going bad, really, really bad.
Yeah, but we only know about Titanic and about cases like this when they crash, but we don't know about them if they succeed, right?
Yes and no, because these are an exception. I mean, at least to me, those companies who do several things from idea from scratch, from without plannings, are an exception in our areas. It's something similar to, okay, I don't need to go to university because Steve Jobs doesn't go or did not go to university. But when you go to the research, the people who has more success in our area has more graduations. The people who do not go to university and has more success, those are the exceptions. That's exactly what happened with business perspective that goes, if not a good plan, if not a walls, if not security, if not a good plan. So it happened. It's not safe, but please pay attention. There's an exception of the rules.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, I think
my pleasure.
Today it's much simpler to have at least some decent quality of your project. For example, you can be you not need to be a huge enterprise to set up, for example, GitHub Actions or to have depender bot that report broken dependencies for you or something like this. So I guess having outdated and just vulnerable dependencies is not an excuse today. Just because you are small, it doesn't mean you should not care about this, because it's really easy to care today, I guess. And I have another question. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Yes, I have another question for you. So, for example, I'm like a startup and trying to do a new project. And you said that you should not always use Kubernetes, right?
Yes.
And are there any hints? How should I decide at the starting time? Should I never start new project right with Kubernetes, or sometimes it's better to start with Kubernetes when you are just beginning your project? Are there any hints? How can I decide?
Okay. As any complex questions, the answer is it depends of the context, right? So if you start only with developers, you don't have budget or you don't have anybody in your team who knows deeply about Kubernetes, please use platform as a service. There is Heroku, Platform Sage, there is Elastic. So there are several tools. You only need to pay attention on your code and not anything else. So they're able to use database as a service as well. Especially because every time that you want to handle with infrastructure, you need to pay attention what sometimes nobody talk to you. For example, backup. When the application fail, when the network fail, when everything goes wrong, we need to have somebody, security, these things, upgrade your application. My point is, Kubernetes is amazing, but it has a huge complexity. And as a recommendation, have somebody expert in Kubernetes to move this step. If you only have developers, go for a path like platform as a service, like Heroku, Platform as Sage, and so on. And I know it's a tricky discussion, but to me, there is no full stack developer. A single person who knows everything about everything in IT area. A person who knows front end, back end, infrastructure, software engineer, platform engineer, to me, is like almost impossible. But that's my advice. And when you become big, and okay, that's time maybe to you hire people who knows Kubernetes and start to use Kubernetes instead of a PaaS. Especially because when you start, the client does not care about if you running Kubernetes or PaaS. Basically, they want to test if that's help or not, it is useful or not to them.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Then I have another question about microservices architecture. Do you know any examples of projects who were like fully microservice, but then give up and say, okay, we are returning back to monolith?
Oh, yes. Right now it's become a trend, right? So I'm this on core where I need to review several articles. And I saw several public cases like Lemonade in the US. They returned to monolith. In Brazil, we have iFood. It's a delivery software company where they moved to microservice, where they had 200 microservices. And then it was complex to have a lot of them. And then they returned to monolith because they break down wrongly the boundaries. And there is also an article by Bart Fowler that he explained about the bundle of contexts and the several mistakes around that. Basically, the recommendation is first understand the context, understand your domain, and then start to break down this kind of thing. Otherwise, you gonna do a mistake. And unfortunately, it's become a trend, right? We start with a hype. Everybody try to use. It doesn't matter how. We're gonna send. There's no perfect situation, and then we will get more maturity with that.
Yes, that's true. Hype is a real problem for programming. It's like everywhere when new technology comes, like, oh, everybody try to use it. And after some time, people say, well, probably it's not that suitable for our needs. I guess we saw this with NoSQL and
Yes.
maybe some other technologies. Even Java language features, I remember, like there was a time when everybody wanted to write everything via Stream API when Java 8 was out. And after that, there was some movement backwards. Okay, well, we probably should use Stream API less often.
Oh, come on. We are older than that. Remember that every time you should put Hibernate cache in everything, it doesn't matter how. The Hibernate second level cache was like the Microsoft in that time. So it doesn't matter. Just put cache. Put cache in everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the consistency of your application. Cache, 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 cache. And then it become a nightmare. So we need to decrease. Nobody talks about that like a silver bullet anymore.
Sure. Okay. If there are no more questions, then thank you again, Otavio, and
That's my pleasure.
see you next time.
Yeah, see you. Thank you.